welcome back to Vinyl Friday, where I go through my records like a big nerd and talk about why I love them ordinarily, but it's the last week of the month, and we do something slightly different and fun. I'd like to think that all of it's fun. I have a good time. Never mind. You'll see what I mean shortly. Last month, the video at the end of the month was one in which I was comparing the music of John Lennon. Why must you stand on my keyboard? You menace. What was I saying? One which compared the songwriting of John Lennon as a Beatle against the songwriting of his bandmate, his compatriot, Paul McCartney. My mind blanked. I totally forgot his name for about half a second. And many of you were so upset that George was disqualified. But here's the thing. I didn't think that it was fair to judge George's 22 songs against the 70-something odd contributions that each of his two other songwriter bandmates made to the music of the Beatles, when clearly he's deserving of an entire episode dedicated to just his songs. And that's what this is.
It's me!
Thank you all for your complaints, but, you know, this was coming, so I did take on the constructive criticism of some of the comments. The metric system here, that is the system of metrics, not centimeters, millimeters, kilograms, etc., which is the superior system, I'm sorry, imperialists, is such that I will be judging each song according to the quality of its music, its lyrics, and its performance. However, many of you made the request last time that I score out of 10 instead of out of 5, so I will be doing that in this episode. At the very end, there will be a ranking. So we'll take the scores of all of them and put them in order. I would also like to remind everyone to be nice to each other in the comments. Some of you were mean to me in the comments last time. I don't love that, but I'm especially offended if you're mean to each other, so don't do that. Kindness is a choice. The last thing to note is that this is not a serious academic pursuit. This episode exists for us to have fun. Really, it's just an excuse to enjoy the best of some of our favorite music. So, you know, don't be this guy. With all of that said, we're going to go in chronological order for the most part. You'll see what I mean. It gets a bit messy at the end. So our first song is 1963's Don't Bother Me with the Beatles, their second album. To the person who said that I should be taking into account the American releases of this album because without America, the Beatles wouldn't have really existed, I politely declined. We will be judging according to the UK releases. Again, I mean to cause no offense. So, Don't Bother Me. Here we go. I'm assigning the music a 7 out of 10 for Don't Bother Me. There are a few things that are happening in this song that are interesting. The first is that there are some slightly oddball chord changes, like on the line, Because I Know. Because I know she'll always be. The song is very much of its time, but I think a lot of that is probably attributable to its recording techniques, and we won't hold that against George, right? It was 1963. They were doing what they could with the gear that they had available, and I'm sure people will say that about music from 2026 in 60 years' time. The lyrics I'm awarding an 8 out of 10. It's a really interesting conceit. That is, that the scorned lover is not speaking to an ex, but to an entirely different third party. When he refers to the ex, it's in the third person. I can't believe that she would leave me on my own. But then when he comes to second person, I've got no time for you right now, don't bother me. It's just a slightly different take on an entirely over-examined genre, and specifically song lyrics. The performance is a 7 out of 10 for me. He has a good amount of snark at the chorus. So go away, leave me alone, don't bother me. And he has great reach on that Because I Know that we had to listen to earlier. Other than that, it's not an especially emotive performance, but the man was in his very early 20s and he had two juggernaut songwriters alongside him who had years, really, of songwriting practice over him. Even simply by virtue of the fact that they were older. Like, when you start writing songs, most people are not great from the beginning. Most of us write some duds to begin with, and in George's case, he didn't really get a lot of time to write those practice duds before they had an enormous audience, and he wasn't doing it in tandem with John and Paul. John was like 3 years older than George, so by this point I think John was 23 when this album was recorded and released, and George would have just turned 20. at this point in their lives, I think the age gap does make a difference. And we're really not comparing apples to apples when we're taking this song against, for instance, All My Loving. But that doesn't mean that he won't get better. And by no means is this a bad song. I've given this a 22 out of 30, which is a solid first attempt. Let's move on to our second song. There's a huge gap between the first song and the second song on this list. The next one came out on Help, and it sounds like this.
You don't realize how much I need you.
To emphasize the point that I was making before, by this point, John Lennon's now 24. He's writing Help, the title track on this record, and starting to really grapple with some inner demons in his music. Paul has contributed Yesterday for this record. So they are approaching the top of their game by this point. They have had years of practice writing together. Like by this point, I think they'd been writing music together for somewhere near 7 or 8 years. So let's talk about George, because this is not an episode about John and Paul. This is about George. I think the music on this track is a 7 out of 10. A perfectly decent song. And I especially like the chord change under the lyric, just can't go on.
I just can't go on anymore.
That's a lovely set of changes. It's a solid song. It is not yet his best. We will get there. Within the next year, he becomes a much stronger songwriter. So it's coming and it's not far away. The lyrics, unfortunately, are a 5 out of 10 on this one. It is absolutely riddled with cliches like, I'm lonely as can be. They can't all be gems. 5 out of 10. And I promise this is the lowest score that I'm going to give any of his lyrics throughout this expose. This totally unacademic, unserious expose. The performance is 7 out of 10. It's perfectly serviceable, but like Paul McCartney on his earlier recordings, which we talked about in last month's video, he hasn't quite found his feet yet. He's trying out a few different things. He will get there. So that's 19 out of 30 for I Need You. And my apologies to my sister, who adores this song and who will be shouting at her screen right now because I've awarded it too few points. Hopefully there aren't too many of you out there doing the same. Song number 3 is You Like Me Too Much, also off the album Help. Music's an 8 out of 10. I really like this one. The chords are a little bit off-kilter in places, and George's writing is a little bit off-kilter in places. And I mean that as a good thing. He makes these choices like somebody who has never heard music before and doesn't understand the rules. He does what he wants from pretty early on in his songwriting career, whereas most musicians don't start breaking the rules until after they've mastered them. George just goes in with those oddball changes from some of his earliest compositions. Let's have a listen quickly to some of the verse.
You've tried before to leave me, but you haven't got the nerve to walk.
If I'm hearing it correctly, the song's in the key of G. Yes, but it doesn't start in G. It starts on A minor 7, and it goes from there straight into a C major 7. Or rather, it's like A minor, and then A minor 7, and then C major 7. These are jazz chords. Jazz chords, George. You came up on rock and roll, and blues and country. Where's this coming from? And this is at a point in the Beatles' career where they're still firmly in their rock and roll era. Maybe veering into folk a little bit at this point, but they are still very much a rock and roll band. George is doing his own thing, which honestly I think is his greatest asset as a songwriter. Good job, George. The lyrics are a 7 out of 10. I'm not sure if this is intentional, but I really love the flip-flopping of the song's unreliable narrator. There's this, you like me too much and I like you, which is kind of ambivalent. You're more into this than I am. Fine. But then at the bridge, he sings this.
'Cause I couldn't really stand it. I'd admit that I was wrong.
I couldn't really stand it. I'll admit that I was wrong. This is not someone who doesn't care, but he hasn't really decided where he stands on the matter, so that's kind of fun. 7 out of 10. And the performance is also a 7 out of 10 for the same reason that I Need You got a 7 out of 10. He hasn't quite figured out where he stands as a performer. So that's another 22 out of 30. Track 4 is Think for Yourself, and this is where things start to get interesting. The music is an 8 out of 10. It's been stumping musicologists for years now. I did a full mini-series, macro-series, whatever you want to call it, on Rubber Soul in 2023. And the Wikipedia page for this song is insane. It goes on for page upon page upon page, or scroll upon scroll upon scroll. And there are all of these quotes from musicologists who are breaking down the minutiae of the song, which, of course, George wasn't doing when he was writing it. And I think, that tickles me. Again, he does not start the song on the root chord, and he takes an incredibly circuitous journey to come back to it. It's also got a great chorus hook.
Do what you want to do and go where you're going to.
I hit play, and I'm just hit with this wave of, hot damn, this is a good album. It just feels so good to listen to Rubber Soul. It's mercurial, it shifts. Today, my favorite Beatles album is Rubber Soul. It just feels so good to listen to. Anyway, getting sidetracked. The lyrics are a 9 out of 10. This is another one of George's mystery objects in his song. Who is he singing to? No one knows. He never told anyone. This is such a leap lyrically from his efforts earlier in the year. What happened? I'm going to venture a guess and say that it was lysergic acid diethylamide, but that's just my take. It's absolutely scathing, and there is such interesting rhyming choices, word choices in the rhyme scheme throughout this song, like this one.
Although your mind's opaque, try thinking more if just for your own sake.
Rhyming opaque with sake? Cool. Cool, George. I love that. Performance is a 9 out of 10. George is finally starting to find his voice. And yes, I recognize that on his early 1965 album, I was saying that he hadn't really found it yet. I don't know what happened. Again, I think it was acid. But he went from feeling kind of insecure in his contributions to Beatles albums with, his songwriting attempts to coming out as a really snarky songwriter. Although your mind's opaque, try thinking more of it just for your own sake. That takes a level of confidence that completely is missing in some of those earlier attempts. Good for you, George. I love it. 9 out of 10. So that takes our total to 26 out of 30. Oh, I forgot to introduce you to our scorekeeper. She's been on the channel a lot. This is our scorekeeper, doing the Lord's work. Song number 5 is If I Needed Someone, which I'm going to state my bias here. I think it's one of George's best songs as a Beatle. It sounds like this. George aside, this has a fantastic bass line, and it really does help the song along. Music's a 9 out of 10. I love that second chord. Harmonically, it drops, but the bass doesn't. I'll show you what I mean. Yes, standard tuning. You never know. In my house, this is not plugged in, so I hope you can hear it. This is an A on an A bass. This is a G. Nope. This is a G on an A bass. So it sounds like this. And that for me is what makes the song. If I needed someone to love, you're the one that I've been thinking of. If I needed someone... It's that chord. Ooh, it's juicy. I love that. As with You Like Me Too Much, there's some really fascinating changes throughout the verse. And then more conventional ones when we come to the bridge here.
Had you come some other day, then it might not have been.
It sounds like a rock and roll song at the bridge, but then we come back to the verse and it feels almost transcendental. So I just love this song so much. The lyrics are 7 out of 10. They are incredibly ambivalent. If I needed someone, if I had some more time to spend, then I guess I'd be with you, my friend. Carve your number on your wall and maybe you will get a call from me. None of this is like a clear and direct, you're the one. I love you. I will be there for you. Bonus points awarded for the choice of the word carve. Carve your number on my wall. The performance is an 8 out of 10 for me. To be honest, I wasn't entirely sure how to rank it because the vocals feel slightly undercommitted, but then the lyrics are equally undercommitted. So I don't know, maybe he's doing it perfectly. In any case, I don't think that it's his best, but it is still pretty solid. Total score for If I Needed Someone is 24 out of 30. Song number 6, we're moving on to a new album. It is the opening track. George has the hallowed position of opening track on Revolver from 1966. The song is Taxman.
Let me tell you how it will be.
This is some good work. The music is an 8 out of 10 for me. The chords alone are not very inspiring. 10 points for you if you can name the reference. But they're elevated by a great melody. So yeah, 8 out of 10. The lyrics are a 9 out of 10. While some of my favorite lyrics on this track were supplied by John Lennon, it's still a great concept that is executed well. So high marks there. The cartoonish villain of the tax man, it perfectly matches the darkness of the music. It feels like a theme song for a bad guy, you know? The performance is a 10 out of 10 for me. George sounds pissed, which is perfect, really. Total score for this one is 27 out of 30. Song 7 is from the same album. George has 3 songs on this album. That's pretty good. So John and Paul must have been really impressed, because he doesn't usually have that many tracks on an album. It's so fascinating, because within this music, he is able to capture the essence of this new music that he's exploring. To be clear, new to him, certainly not new to the world, while still keeping one foot in the West. It's an impressive balancing act. I love the call and response between the vocals and the sitar. And then, of course, there's that glorious melisma. Lovely! What a great riff also played on the sitar. Love this song. 10 out of 10 for music. Lyrics are 7 out of 10. Awarding points because the song is, within rock music, kind of unprecedented thematically, but the execution is a little clumsy and maybe adolescent in places. I think he will get better at this. And performance is 10 out of 10. No notes. So that is also 27 out of 30. I Want to Tell You is his third contribution to Revolver. The music for me is a 7 out of 10. It feels like on this song, George has discovered like flat 9 chords and diminished chords and just gotten a little overexcited. When you're here. And then there's the diminished feel here in the song. But if I seem to act. Sometimes it feels like a little bit too much of a good thing, and that leaves me feeling a little unsettled, but maybe that's just me.
She's a drag, a well-known drag.
The lyrics are a 7 out of 10 for me. Not his best work, but there's some clever, tidy little turns of phrase, like, it's only me, it's not my mind that is confusing things. It's only me, it's not my mind that is confusing things. Great drum fill there. Performance is a 7 out of 10 for me. It's a little flat and underwhelming. I don't mean that he's performing it flat as in the opposite of sharp. It sounds kind of bored. He sounds kind of bored. I do enjoy the nasal quality of his voice on this one, but I think it is put to better use on tracks like Blue Jay Way, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. It's time to move on to the next album. Song number 9 is from Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and it is entitled Within You Without You. Oh, before I forget, the score for I Want to Tell You is 21 out of 30. Within You Without You is a higher score. The music is a 9 out of 10 for me. I think this is an excellent execution of what he was trying to achieve as a young man from Liverpool. And by that, I don't mean Liverpool because it's a cultural backwater. It's not. It's very much not. It's got a fantastic art museum. That aside, I just mean that he didn't grow up listening to Indian classical music. So, you know, he's not going to be able to execute it on the level of Ravi Shankar. But he did pretty well for a British guy in his 20s. Early 20s, no less. I've removed a point because a lot of what I love about the song musically was actually contributed by the other George of the Beatles, producer George Martin, specifically the swooping strings. I'm really impressed at George Martin for being able to get a bunch of orchestral strings players who are accustomed to playing Western music to play in a way that they were not trained and had very little experience with, I'm going to assume. The lyrics are a 10 out of 10 for me. They are suitably mystical without being ham-fisted. I especially love this line. With our love, we could save the world. If they only knew. The performance is a 10 out of 10 for me. It is what sells the mystique without being ham-fisted. The lyrics themselves could be a little bit too much, but his voice is perfectly hushed in places, and then it rises in intensity with the music. You can hear it on this line. He's singing the hell out of that line. So that comes to 29 out of 30. This is his highest score yet for me. Is it? Yes, it is. Unfortunately, it's being followed up with a song that I've awarded one of his lowest scores. Sorry, George.
It's such a load of rubbish.
The song is It's Only a Northern Song, which was written for Sgt. Pepper's, but not included. The music I'm giving a 7 out of 10, and all of the points are awarded for the twists and turns of the chords at the bridge of this song, or pre-chorus, I guess.
Doesn't really matter what chords I play, what words I say.
So many harmonic plot twists, you know? Very satisfying. The lyrics are a 6 out of 10. I see what he was trying to achieve. He was going for a brutal takedown of the suits and a protest against the unfair earnings within the band.
Have you got time to actually spend this money?
What money? He said.
Doesn't he give any to you?
No.
It lacks an artistic flair, though, which makes it border on petulant, in my view. The performance, though, is an 8 out of 10. He sounds petulant, but that's a good match for the lyrics, right? Even if it isn't my favorite from George. This is a 21 out of 30. Fortunately, the next one is one that I'm highly rating. The track is It's All Too Much, which was also featured on the Yellow Submarine soundtrack. That sounds like this. The music is a 9 out of 10 for me. It is exuberant, it's radiant, it emanates joy. It is also hectic and chaotic. It is a love letter to the psychedelic experience, which I think is captured with a fair degree of accuracy. I love that the melody lingers around the major seventh in the verse, like this. That your love is the major seventh. It makes the chord quite interesting. That is the flair, I think, that lends this song a slightly alien quality. The lyrics are an 8 out of 10. It's still George the Mystic, but it has a bit more of a rock and roll flair, another flair, which I think makes it the embodiment of acid rock, you know? Bonus points for the Get Me Home for Tea line. My favorite line is probably in the chorus, this. The idea of being overwhelmed by the love that's shining all around me. That's the sentiment that I love from across the universe. Limitless, undying love that shines around me like a million suns. Shining love. We all shine on. Performance is a 10 out of 10 for me. It has these murky, quirky verses in which I think he sings these lines beautifully. Like, let me find one. It's the T, the emphasis, the application of dynamics, of volume in certain places makes this a very satisfying listen as the consumer of the music. And then he has these big, emphatic choruses. So good. We're really getting to hear George let loose, which we don't really get a lot of, especially this early in his career. And we can hear that he's starting to move away from his raga rock and gravitate back towards his guitar. But he hasn't completely let go of some of those qualities. The song has that drone and the vocal melisma at the end of the song. Let's find it. It's just a little bit of the Indian classical music in which he's been immersed, submerged in for the last 2 years. So 27 out of 30 for It's All Too Much. Let's move on to Blue Jay Way from the Magical Mystery Tour soundtrack. Music is an 8 out of 10 for me on this one. George once again follows no man's rules on this one. In Western music, you're not supposed to write an entire song on one key, over one key, that never changes. The bass note of the song remains the same. I think it's in C? Yes, it's in C. The song breaks that rule. It's sort of a cardinal rule in Western music. That's not to say that you can't break that rule, just that it's unusual to do so. Another rule is that diminished chords are supposed to be used for emphasis, and you quickly move on from the diminished chord into something else. If you're curious about what a diminished chord is, I did an entire episode about George and his diminished chords, which you can watch here. This song absolutely blows that rule out of the water. The entire verse and the melody in the verse, getting my words twisted around, the melody in the verse is just outlining that diminished chord before it resolves here. Then it goes major at the chorus. Wild behavior, mad lad behavior. Again, he's sort of borrowing from Indian classical music on this one. He's playing more with modes, which I think are the closest thing in Western music that we have to the notion of the Indian raga. If you want to know more about that, you can watch my episode on Love You To. Here, I got to play a sitar. It was very exciting. Oh, it's much harder than it looks. So yeah, he's playing more in modes than in keys, which is more of a Western thing, a Western approach. So 8 out of 10 for the music. Lyrics are 7 out of 10 for me. They're utterly banal. He's literally just waiting on friends and wanting them to hurry the fuck up so he can go to bed. And yet they're written in such a way that it feels like they harbor on secret meaning territory. Like, please don't be long. Please don't belong. They've lost themselves instead. Literally or metaphorically? We don't know. To be clear, I don't think that there is any hidden meaning in this song. I just like that they're written so literally that they can be misread as something else. Or read as something else if that's what you're into. I don't want to take your fun away from you. And the performance is a 9 out of 10 for me. I don't think he has ever sounded this eerie before or since. Well, it only goes to show 24 out of 30 for this song. And the next song is The Inner Light, but I'm going to take a break because I really need to eat something and change the lighting and everything. It's kind of dark, you know, it's getting late in the day. So we're going to pause for a second here and I'll see you shortly. Immediately for you, shortly for me. Well, that took rather longer than I anticipated. It's now been 2 days. I've been to work, I've played a gig, I've eaten many more meals than I intended to when I left this video. So let's polish this puppy off. We're up to The Inner Light from 1968. The music for this song is an 8 out of 10 for me. It is at once pastoral and also perky. George is starting to near the end of his raga rock phase, but he's ending it with a jaunty bang. I'd like to award bonus points for the dominant 7th in the melody. I think I've got that right. It doesn't matter. It sounds like this. It's that bit. It's so good. I'm also a big fan of the high energy finish. See all without looking, do all without doing. And then the repeating refrain at the end. What a cool way to end a song. Yeah, 8 out of 10 I give this one for music. Lyrics for me are a 7 out of 10 on this track. They read sort of like a meditation pamphlet, but they are a good match with the lyrics. And the performance for me is an 8 out of 10 as well. Once again, George conveys this air of wisdom, and then he breaks into a joyous exclamation at the end. Beautifully done.
Thank you.
Song number 14 is While My Guitar Gently Weeps from the White Album, also released in 1968. Music's a 10 out of 10. George breaks his own rules with this one in that he follows all of the rules of songwriting. Every single chord in this song feels like it is expertly placed and goes exactly where you think it should. The turnarounds in and out of the bridge are very tidy and precise. Lovely transition there. The chord sequence in the verse is not his most unique, but it is exactly what is needed in the song. So, perfect. Full marks. The lyrics are also full marks. 10 out of 10, George. I think these are some of George's best lyrics. The sentiment is conveyed with total clarity, but the specifics are up for interpretation. And I think that that's what good lyrics do. They give you a general vibe, and then you get to make of them what you will. He also has some really lovely turns of phrase in the song like this one. With every mistake, we must surely be learning. One would hope. The performance, full marks, 10 out of 10. This is George's first perfect score in today's program. George has really gotten the hang of vocal expressiveness by this point. He's beginning to really pour his soul into his vocal performances in his music. He feels less self-conscious. So this song, easy 30 out of 30. Sorry, before I finish talking about performance, bonus points for the moaning at the end. That's not George phoning it in. That's not George being cautious. That's not George being self-conscious. Making that kind of moaning noise in the studio, that's not self-conscious. The next song, number 15, is Piggies. The music for this one is a 7 out of 10 for me. I'm trying not to deduct points for arrangement here because I actually really like the demo. I prefer listening to the demo over the studio release.
Goes on the line.
But that's just me, and I'm trying to be as unbiased as I possibly can in this very biased ranking, or at least very subjective ranking. Harmonically, it's a song. It's definitely a song. It's not doing anything especially inspired or surprising, twisty, turny. You know, the sorts of things I really love. The lyrics are a 5 out of 10. I believe I said earlier that, like 2 days earlier, that 5 was the lowest score that I was going to give anything. And this is true, but it is another 5. This song's downfall is the opposite to what I think While My Guitar Gently Weeps does really well. It's intended as a satire, but I feel like it lacks the nuance to do that really well. This song was actually written several years before it was recorded and released, which makes sense because While My Guitar Gently Weeps has a maturity to it, and that I feel is lacking on Piggies. It leaves nothing to the imagination. My imagination is slightly disappointed.
I'm a happy fellow and I don't give a toss.
And performance is an 8 out of 10. It commits to the bit. I will give him that. Piggies is a 20 out of 30 for me, total score. Long, 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 on the other hand, is one of my favorite songs on the White Album. God, what a pretty introduction. Even just the introduction of this song is so lovely. Sorely underrated and deserving of far more love and attention. The music for me is a 9 out of 10. The song feels totally ageless. The chord changes are simple, but they perfectly depict yearning. It's very beautiful. The lyrics are also a 9 out of 10 for me. There's nothing especially creative about the lyrics of this love song. The sentiments within are oft repeated. It's not anything we haven't heard before. But unlike some of his earlier and I think clumsier attempts, this doesn't feel trite at all. The performance is a 10 out of 10. It is an exceptionally good portrayal of yearning that is described in the lyrics. The performance also lends the title a little double meaning because the protagonist longs for a long, long, long time. I love the delivery of the line, "How I love you." Sorry, that's the wrong line. "When I loved you" is the line. This one. It's just kind of intoxicating, you know? It's really, really well done. I also really love the "oh, oh" at the end of the bridge. And then there's whatever the hell is happening at the end. Sure. Okay. You do you, George. But otherwise, yeah, 10 out of 10. I love this song. Total of, 28? Yes, 28 out of 30. Our next song is his last offering on the White Album. It is Savoy Truffle. Possibly a controversial move, but I am awarding Savoy Truffle 10 marks for music. George is back to his tricks. The chord sequence in this song is bonkers. Rulebook is out the window. It's so much fun, these chord changes. I think the piano correspondent is out in the field, but we'll get her to show you what I mean. Here are the chords that the anchor is talking about. So E, F sharp, A, G, B, E minor, C, G. It ends on G, which is not the root chord. The root chord is this. E major. There are twists and turns, chromatic roller coasters.
Coffee dessert, just you know it's good news.
Syncopated stabs at the bridge.
When the pain cuts through, you're gonna know how.
This song's an absolute playground. I love it. The lyrics are an 8 out of 10 for me. It's just a delight to see George Harrison just having some fun. There's a cute, simple, sweet treat rhyming scheme. A very simple message, not especially profound, but they don't all have to be, you know? It's like a Roald Dahl novel soundtracked. Never mind, that's been done. But you take my point, you know? Performance is a 9 out of 10 for me. By George, he's got it. He's now consistently nailing this wholehearted commitment to vocal delivery. Well done, my guy. Excellent. I'm loving your work.
I'd just like to say thank you very much. It's a great honour.
So that's 27 out of 30 for Savoy Truffle. Our next song is 18th on this list. It is For You Blue. Let's start with music, as we have with every other one on this list. 7 out of 10 for music. Much like the object of George's affection in this song, it is sweet and lovely. It's a straightforward 12-bar blues, but the acoustic arrangement lends it a very cozy intimacy. Lyrics are 6 out of 10 for me. It's not bad, it's simply a little predictable in places, bordering on unimaginative. Still, the song isn't really advertising itself as an artistic behemoth or anything, so it's fine. It's fine. I would not go so far as to drop the score to a 5. You know, 6 feels right. The performance, though, is an 8 out of 10 for me. It has a sort of elevated giddiness to it. I forgot to explain. I'm doing the Let It Be songs at this point for 2 reasons. The first is that, to some extent, the bulk of this album was produced before Abbey Road. So even though it was released in 1970, this feels like a pre-Abbey Road album for me. The other reason is that I don't want to end this episode on I Me Mine. It doesn't feel like the right finish. It doesn't feel like the right legacy for George Harrison's work as a Beatle. So yes, we'll continue our way through the Let It Be album. For You Blue. Where did we get up to? We were going to have a listen. When I say acoustic arrangement, I've just had another listen to it. I guess I mostly mean the introduction. It introduces, whoa, the mood of the song. And the mood of the song, even though it's not explicitly acoustic instruments, does have that intimacy to it. And speaking of cozy intimacy, there are these moments in the song that I really enjoy.
Go, Johnny, go.
Go, Johnny, go. It's so deadpan. It always makes me laugh. And then there's this.
Elmore James got nothing on this, baby.
Getting to hear him giggle a little in the studio is just really lovely. It's so much fun, and it counters the long-held notion that the recording of Let It Be was this horrible affair for everyone involved. Like, as we saw in the Get Back documentary, they did have fun sometimes, and this little moment in the song is evidence of that. It invites us to participate in the silliness of the song. It's not taking itself too seriously. So that's a total of 21 out of 30 for You Blue. Song number 19 is Old Brown Shoe, and this is a track I really enjoy. Music is a 9 out of 10 for me. This is a seriously underrated song, and it is so quintessentially George. The opening chord and melody set us up for a 12-bar blues, but the second chord commences this whirlwind, God, that's a mouthful, whirlwind journey through conflicting and novel chord changes. He even throws in some of his beloved diminished chords at the end of the bridge here. There it is. And last, I think it's one of his best solos as a Beatle. And it was just thrown on the back half of a single. I can't remember which one. Editor Nancy will look it up and tell you. Fantastic. God, we don't hear enough of that. Well played, well structured, well arranged, great note choices.
Yes, I agree. Yes.
Well done. The lyrics are an 8 out of 10. It's a love song, so the lyrics are stereotypical of that genre, but points have been awarded for the musicality of the word choices of the lyrics. They fit beautifully and percussively into the verses without feeling like too much of a mouthful. And that is very difficult to do as a lyricist, especially if you have a message that you're trying to convey at the same time. The performance is also an 8 out of 10 for me. From a technical perspective, it's a really solid vocal performance. I especially love how he sings the run on Love With You. Actually, I'm wrong. It's not on the released version. It's actually on the anthology version, and that sounds like this.
Baby, I'm in love with you.
Still, I'm maintaining it's an 8 out of 10. So 25 out of 30 for Old Brown Shoe. Not his best score, but perfectly serviceable. And now we're going to talk about I Me Mine. Now, I think this was actually the last thing that the band recorded in their final recording session. Editor Nancy will correct me if I'm wrong. Editor Nancy here, this is incorrect. I Me Mine was actually completed in their second to last recording session, their final recording session as a group. They were playing Let It Be. I think it's one of the saddest songs in the Beatles, in the band's catalogue. The music for me is a 7 out of 10. The first half has that ageless quality that While My Guitar Gently Weeps had, as though the song has always existed throughout time. I'm in mine, I'm in mine, I'm in mine. And maybe for that reason, I've always found the second part of the song kind of jarring. It's as though they couldn't think of a chorus, and so they slapped that together and threw it into the song. Especially when the first half is so heavy and so dark and sad. That feels like a silly little boogie woogie, you know? I don't know if I'm making any sense here, but the first half of the song feels poignant. And I do think that profundity is kind of undermined by the jauntiness of the second half. I hope some of you understand what I'm talking about. The lyrics are 7 out of 10 for this one. It's full of cliches. Flowing more freely than wine. Side note, you've all heard me complain about Phil Spector's arrangements on Let It Be, but I will concede it works really well on this one. That like really heavy choral ending brings a high drama that really suits this song. Anyway, so those sorts of cliches really signal that this is not his best work. That's a pretty juvenile representation of greedy egotism, especially as it's about his bandmates, and so it's a little whingy in places. However, the performance is a 10 out of 10. It imbues a deeper meaning than I think the lyrics are capable of doing on their own. The vocal is weary, the vocal is hurt in equal measure. There's just a lot of emotion there. I wonder if he knew that it was their final recording session. I'm not sure if the vocals were laid down in that final session or if they were done earlier, because they did start recording this earlier. Anyway, we're getting in the weeds. Let's move on to something happier. The next song is Something. That's song number 21 on our list of 22. Music, obviously a 10 out of 10 for Something. I mean, I'd be a monster to award it anything less. Editor Nancy, what's the Frank Sinatra quote about Something? The greatest love song of the past 50 years. Which is high praise given that he kind of hated the Beatles. I don't know if he hated them, but he certainly had no respect for them. Are we going to argue with Frank Sinatra? Actually, there are probably plenty of things to argue about with Frank Sinatra, but not here and not today. While My Guitar Gently Weeps employed this descending bass line with a sort of chromatic flourish, and clearly it was a winning strategy because he's done something very similar with this one, but in a major key, and that descent is happening in the melody. Actually, it's kind of happening in the chords as well. Let's listen to it.
Something in the way she moves.
Simple and beautiful, very effective. There's so much to love in this song. There's the elegant chromatic melody that we just listened to. There's the contrast between those sleek and elegant chords and the boisterous bridge.
You're asking me when my love grows.
There's also another of his best solos as a Beatle. Played with such a deft touch. It's loud in places, it's slightly behind the beat in places. It doesn't have the twangy messiness of some of his solos from earlier in their career. This one is so nuanced and so complex. Such good work. Masterclass in songcraft. Let's get on to the lyrics. 10 out of 10. Duh. They're simple and yet they're full. They feel very complete. There's this clever little construction whereby the parallel verses all begin with the word something and are followed by a sequence of very tidy rhymes, all while describing with great accuracy the je ne sais quoi of a beloved. Exquisite. And the performance, 10 out of 10, obviously. If the way that he sings woo doesn't evoke desire, I don't know what does. Let's listen to that.
Something in the way she woos me.
Credit where credit's due. Both Ringo and Paul are giving this song so much juice. But without it, it's still a fantastic song. That is without the drums and the bass. If you played this acoustically, and I'm sure there's a demo floating around somewhere of that.
Something in the way she woos me.
It's still fantastic. Speaking of je ne sais quoi and I don't know, the way he sings I don't know is flabbergasting. So enjoyable. Let's listen to that. You can't tell me that's not one of his best performances as a Beatle. He has 110% heart. And Dad, before you lay into me, I know that there is no such thing as 110% heart, but bear with, okay? You can take it up with me in real life. 30 out of 30 for something. And as I said, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, it would be illegal for me to award it any less than that. And finally, Here Comes the Sun. I think we can all guess what the final score of Here Comes the Sun could be. And also, see, we're coming to the end of the video, and the final song that we're covering is Here Comes the Sun. Isn't that so much nicer than finishing on I Me Mine? Yes, the answer is yes. Music, easy 10 out of 10 for Here Comes the Sun. God, that's delicious. It's so gentle, and again deftly played, but in a different way to whenever it was that I last used that descriptor. The something solo. Totally different, equally deft, with his deft little fingers. There's so much in the song to excite the listener. There's that pretty and soothing and infectious riff that we just heard. There's some more of George's best, most emotive vocals.
Here comes the sun, I say it's alright.
There's an early adoption of the Moog synthesizer. How futuristic. There's an abundance of clapping. And for the music nerds, there are some strange time signatures in that solo section. I especially love how pure the chords sound in the verse by comparison against I think it's a borrowed chord key change in the solo section. Even if you're not a music theorist, the point is that the bridge sounds slightly messier, slightly dirtier than the verses, which feel very pure and clean. And the song wouldn't be nearly as impactful without that immense tonal shift. It makes the verses and the choruses feel especially triumphant. It's all right. Lyrics are 10 out of 10. Seasonal metaphors combined with the autobiographical. You know, because the winter of 1969, early 1969, I suppose, was a really unhappy one for George. I believe he calls it
the winter of discontent.
It was not great for George, having spent several really great weeks with his good buddy, Bobby D, in New York, to return to working with his stale bandmates, I suppose. I don't think they were stale, but he might have. It was an unhappy working environment in any case. But the crux of the song is, don't you know it's going to be all right? And I think it delivers it better than Revolution did the year before. Sorry, John. And finally, our final score, the end of the end. Performance is a 10 out of 10. Of course. I gave the game away a little bit in the music section when I said that this was one of his best vocals, but I stand by it. This is my favorite line here.
I feel that ice is slowly melting.
That is so affecting. See, earlier, I guess the frustration, no, it's not even frustration. I'm not explaining this very well for someone whose job is to explain these things. When I was talking about some of his earlier performances where he felt kind of self-conscious as a listener, there's the sense of dramatic irony because we as the listeners know what he is capable of. We know just how expressive that voice can be. In some cases, I think more expressive than Paul, because George seems to let loose in a way that is a lot more vulnerable than Paul. Neither of them can hold a candle to John when he's feeling especially impassioned. But, you know, there is so much in his voice, and he just hadn't figured out how to use it to great effect earlier in their career, which is fine. I mean, you don't come out of the womb knowing how to do this, knowing how to make Abbey Road. His playing on this track is also formidable. There's no question that this is one of George's best songs. There's no question that this is one of the Beatles' best songs. There's a reason that this is the most streamed Beatles song. It's had over 1 billion listens. And every one of them was deserved, damn it. And that's it from me. We did it. We got through all 22 songs.
Just a minute.
Wait a second.
Okay, cue the clap now.
Before I say goodbye, we've got to check in with the scorekeeper. How does this line up? tied for first place, and I'm sure you all could guess which songs were going to take the top spots. I hope you've had as good a time doing this as I have. I've enjoyed myself tremendously. And if you did enjoy this episode, or you would like to support any of the weird things I do, I'll leave a link in the description to my Buy Me a Coffee page, where you are most welcome to make a donation if you wish. But no pressure, my friends. Thank you so much to everybody who has made a donation, or signed up as a member, or bought a Beatles postcard. I really appreciate you. I never anticipated that this channel would be any more than me and 100 people on the internet all nerding out about the Beatles. So every time anyone makes a donation, not only does it cheer my little heart, it also makes it a lot easier to do this. Like, I was recently able to upgrade my laptop so that I could record from my laptop instead of from a little portable 8-track recorder, which worked, but it was such a roundabout way of recording. When I say that you guys helped make this possible, I genuinely mean, like, you're facilitating the production of these episodes. So yeah, thank you. Really appreciate you. If you're curious about what any of my music sounds like, I'll leave a link in the description to that as well. All of my music by myself and with my band is available on Bandcamp and all the streaming services. I think that's everything. I'm ready to go have another meal. It's now dinner time 2 days later. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'll see you here next week. Have a great weekend! Can I help you? Yes, I can. Am I using that idiom correctly? I'm not very good at idioms. I grew up in a multilingual household. So I blame my mother. Treat liming screen. It's the wrong song. But I'll groove nonetheless.